In November 1964, a package arrived at Martin Luther King's home. His wife opened it. Inside, a reel-to-reel tape and a letter. The letter said King was a fraud, a filthy, abnormal animal. It told him the clock was ticking. It ended with a suggestion. There is but one way out for you. It was a suicide note, written for him, sent to his home by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Most people know that headline, the letter. But here's what almost nobody knows. The letter wasn't a rogue operation. It wasn't one agent who went too far. It was the output of a decade-long classified program, one that tapped phones, forged documents, planted informants, and according to some researchers, may not have ended with King's death in 1968. By the end of this video, you'll understand the full architecture of what was done to Martin Luther King and why the mechanics of it still matter today. Because the question isn't just, how did this happen? The question is, what does it mean that it did? Let's start with what the FBI admitted. In 1971, a group of activists broke into an FBI field office in Media, Pennsylvania. They stole files, thousands of them, and mailed them to journalists. Inside those files was a name most Americans had never heard: COINTELPRO, the counterintelligence program, active from 1956, officially disbanded in 1971 only after it was exposed. The FBI's own internal documents described its goals openly: prevent the rise of a messiah who could unify and electrify the militant black nationalist movement. King was named directly. Hoover called him the most dangerous Negro in America. Now, the official story is that this was surveillance, ugly, illegal, embarrassing, a product of Cold War paranoia, a different time. That's the comfortable version. Here's the first crack in it. The FBI didn't just watch King. It tried to destroy him, systematically, methodically, over more than a decade. And they weren't subtle about it internally. One memo described the goal as making King's exposure happen before the 1964 Democratic National Convention. This wasn't paranoia. This was a schedule. Layer 1. The wiretaps. Attorney General Robert Kennedy, the man history remembers as a civil rights ally, personally approved wiretaps on King's phones in 1963. The justification? Suspected communist influence in King's inner circle. One advisor, Stanley Levison, had past ties to the Communist Party. The FBI used this to get everything. They bugged his hotel rooms, they recorded his private conversations, they recorded everything else too, and they kept it. Layer 2. The media operation. Hoover's team didn't just gather information, they weaponized it. They leaked selectively to journalists. They sent recordings to King's colleagues, to universities, to the Vatican, before King was due to meet the Pope. The goal wasn't exposure, the goal was isolation. Layer 3. The letter. Back to the package. Written by FBI agent William C. Sullivan, designed to look like it came from a disillusioned black community member. The accompanying tape was assembled from recordings made inside King's hotel rooms. Coretta King opened it. She described it as clearly intended to make her husband take his own life before he received the Nobel Peace Prize. Think about that timing. The Nobel Peace Prize. Layer 4. What happened in 1968? King was assassinated on April 4, 1968, in Memphis. James Earl Ray was convicted, but in 1999, 20 years after Ray's death, a civil jury in Memphis heard evidence for 30 days and returned a verdict finding that King's death was the result of a conspiracy. The King family brought the case. They won. It received almost no national news coverage. Here's what I want you to sit with. The FBI knew that its campaign against King was illegal. Its own lawyers flagged it internally. Agents raised concerns. Memos were written. They kept going. And when the program was exposed, Congress investigated it. A Senate committee, the Church Committee, published its findings in 1976. The report is public. The details are not classified. The committee concluded that the FBI had used tactics of harassment and disruption, including anonymous mailings designed to promote strife against American citizens on American soil for decades. The response? Reforms were promised. Oversight was created. And then, 30 years later, those oversight mechanisms were quietly dismantled after September 11th. The letter sent to Martin Luther King was not an aberration. It was a product. It came off an assembly line, and the factory only shut down when someone broke in and stole the blueprints. What happens when no one breaks in? Here's what we know for certain. A federal agency of the United States government declared a black civil rights leader its primary domestic enemy. It spent a decade trying to neutralize him through psychological warfare, fabricated evidence, coordinated leaks, and, according to a civil jury, something worse. None of the agents responsible faced criminal charges. J. Edgar Hoover died in office in 1972, in his own bed. Still FBI director, still the most powerful law enforcement officer in American history. Here is what remains unresolved. The full COINTELPRO files have not been released. Documents related to King's assassination are still partially classified. The FBI acknowledged in 2021 that records related to the assassination were being withheld. The question this history forces on us is not a partisan one. It's a constitutional one. What is an institution capable of when it decides that someone's ideas are dangerous enough to justify destroying the person? And how would you know if it decided that again? The sources for everything in this video are in the public. The Church Committee report is public. The 1999 civil trial transcript is public. Read them yourself. 8 people broke into an FBI field office in the middle of the night. They were never caught. And without them, you never would have heard any of this. This video is coming soon. If this mattered to you, subscribe. Not because the algorithm needs it, because the next one is already better than this one.